Right. Hi, I am Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm here today with a special guest. This is Matthew from Room 51. I'm wearing the shirt proudly today. Good to
Yes,
see you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Nice seeing you, Jamie. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Do you want to let people know who you are?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. My name's Matthew Makak. And as Jamie said, I run Room 51 along with my brother. We are on YouTube and Twitch, where we play board games and also just talk about board games and social issues around board games. You can also find me on the Dice Tower and newly the Quad on Board Game Geek.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to have you here today. I have this YouTube channel that I've been running for a couple of years, and I do top 10 videos a lot on the channel, focusing on a specific mechanism or genre. And I rarely revisit the lists. And recently I thought, it'd be fun to go back and look at some older lists, like my favorite deck building games, and bring on an amazing guest like you to join me for the list. So together we're going to come up with 10 today. I'll have 5, Matthew will have 5. And before we jump in, I wanted to briefly define what I mean by a deck building game. My definition might be slightly different than yours. And Matthew, you can let me know if it's different than what you envisioned as well.
Yeah.
The way I picture a deck building game is a game in which you build a deck of cards, tokens, or dice. So I'm kind of consolidating everything that Board Game Geek has in their category of dash building games that you play to generate random hands or results. And random is a key word there because I did not include games like Concordia or Aquatica that do have a building element, but there isn't a random element to them. I don't even quite know what to call those games. Even I have an upcoming game, Expeditions, has that mechanism. I'm not exactly sure what to call it. But yeah, is that similar to what you were thinking for deck building games?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were okay with like bag building, and that sort of jazz, but once you let me know that that is something that you were including, I was like, okay, great, because I love those kinds of games.
Yeah.
And I just love this mechanism in games overall. It's probably my favorite. So I was really excited to do this list. I don't think anything quite differs. Nothing on my list anyway, although I was thinking of something like Aeon's End, where I guess there's not a whole lot of randomness.
Yeah.
But I would consider that a deck building game.
Yeah, that one was right on, like, doesn't really fit with my definition, because you're right, it is a deck building game, very much so,
Yeah.
but because in Aeon's End you aren't randomizing your hand, you're just putting them into a specific order in your discard pile,
Right,
and then not shuffling it, which I think is an asset to that game rather than
Yeah.
So I totally understand if that ends up on your list. I think that is closer to what I'm thinking than a game like Concordia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So real quick, I'm going to read off the top picks from Stonemaier ambassadors. I asked them what their favorite deck building games are right now. And then we'll do some honorable mentions, and then we'll jump into our top 5.
Cool. Sounds good.
Ambassadors actually did include Aeon's End. 9 ambassadors said that Aeon's End is their favorite deck building game. 23 ambassadors mentioned Clank. 9 mentioned Dominion as their favorite. Another 23 mentioned Dune Imperium. Looking at the ones where I had multiple responses, 10 people said Lost Ruins of Arnak, and 5 said Star Realms. We'll see if any of those end up on our list.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, why don't you rattle off your honorable mentions real quick before we get into the top 5?
Sure. Yeah. So my honorable mentions are Mage Knight, Paperback, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Clank, a little bit of crossover there, and Star Wars: The Deck Building Game.
Oh, okay. You may have just mentioned some that are going to show up in my top 5. We'll see. And then my honorable mentions were Shards of Infinity, Living Forest, Orleans, Abandon All Artichokes, Lost Ruins of Arnak, Dead Reckoning, Slay the Spire, and Inscryption. And those last 2 I mentioned here because we are focusing today on tabletop deck building games, even though Slay the Spire is getting a tabletop implementation. But I really do like those digital deck building games too. Did you have any digital deck building games that you wanted to throw out there that you enjoy?
No, I've only played Aeon's End digitally, so
okay.
But I didn't include. I haven't played it enough to include it.
Okay.
So.
Cool. Well, let's jump into our top 5. So we're going to name our top 5 here today. Maybe share one or two of our favorite aspects of why we really love these games. Matthew, why don't you jump off and start with your 5th favorite deck building game?
Yeah. So my 5th one is a bag building game, and it's one of your honorable mentions, I believe you said, but it's Orleans.
Yeah.
So I love this one because one of the cool things about Orleans is that as you're, building your bag of those little chips, you're taking them out, and there's then like a sort of like worker placement aspect to it where you're placing your discs out so that way you could like get more stuff and more chips. But what I like is that you'll place them out and it's kind of, you're building up. So you don't have to have all of them at once to get what you need. You could like kind of build it up, place it there, and then hope that you could pull the rest of what you need out of the bag in a later turn. And then you can also have things in your reserve as well. It's like, okay, I'm not sure where I want to put these yet. I want to see what I get first. So there's some sort of like mitigation also then with the randomness. But I love it. And then like the racing of the tracks where it's like, okay, I got this, so I get to move up. And then you get extra benefits. So I don't know. I just love that where you're gaining benefits for just like even getting the disc or the chip regardless. And then being able to get more of that and more resources by just building it up and not having to have everything out at once if you don't pull it out at once.
Yeah, there really aren't that many deck building or / building games that give you the opportunity to hold over the cards or resources, whatever it is, until the moment that you're ready to spend them. Most of them are like you draw your hand of 5 cards and you have to get rid of all of them, use them or discard them by the end of your turn. So it is really nice in Orleans that there's that delay where you can time it right for when you really, really want, when you have enough to gain the benefit or when you really want to gain that benefit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love it. So that's my number 5. Orleans.
Yeah. I love it. And I also want to mention, I love several games on my list have this, but the simultaneous nature of the worker placement in Orleans really keeps like the downtime to a minimum. I love that.
Yeah.
And that shows up at actually my number 5 game, Dice Forge.
Oh, okay.
I almost forgot to put this one on my list because it's right on the edge of whether or not it's a building game. But Dice Forge is a dice building game. Have you played Dice Forge?
I've not played Dice Forge, but I've played Kapow, which also has like that dice building mechanism. Okay. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I guess there are a few games in this genre. Dice Forge may have been one of the first ones where you're actually popping sides of the dice, the plastic dice off, and then you're popping on new sides of the dice as you're building those dice. And my favorite thing about Dice Forge, the thing that hooks me on it and that gets it back to the table quite a bit, even though it's not one that I own, is that on every single turn, you are rolling your 2 dice. So if it's Matthew's turn, Matthew's rolling their dice, I'm rolling my dice, and we're all gaining the benefits from the dice. The only added benefit for the person who is the active player is they are allowed to buy things on their turn. No one else can buy stuff. So you're building up resources when it's not your turn because you're rolling those dice. And then when it is your turn, you get the added benefit of buying something. So I love that simultaneous nature. And just that, I love games with dice where you get to roll the dice a lot. And in Dice Forge, you're constantly rolling those dice and you're building the dice too, which feels extra good to go with the deck building element here. I'd highly recommend it if you ever get the chance to play it.
Yeah, I've wanted to play that for since it came out, which is, I don't know, years ago at this point, but I just never got around to it. I would really like to try it out though.
It is on Board Game Arena as well. It's not quite as satisfying to roll dice, I think, on virtual platforms, but it does take away the slight annoyance of the game of popping out these kind of sharp plastic pieces. Board Game Arena takes that care of that for you. But yeah, Dice Forge is my number 5 favorite game. Cool. What about your number 4?
Yeah, so my number 4 is a 2-player only game. And it was sort of mentioned in the, I guess, mentions from the ambassadors, I believe, where they said Star Realms, but I picked Hero Realms.
Yeah.
So I love this, especially with the hero packs, because one, I just love the nature of it, where it's like, if somebody is a Magic the Gathering fan, let's say, and you kind of want to show them a little bit about like what board games could do, you could easily show them Hero Realms. And it's letting them know, like, instead of deck construction, you're not building your deck right off the bat before you actually play the game. It's part of playing the game is like building the deck, which is really cool. And going after your opponent and having those guards out, that it's like, nope, I'm protecting my life points now. You have to defeat this, while it's also giving you a special ability that you can use. The hero packs just bring it to a whole new level for me, where I actually feel a little bit different playing like the wizard or the whatever, the paladin or
The
something. I
rogue,
forget.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
rogue, yeah. So those are cool because you then have like 2 cards out already where it's like I can use one of these at any point there where it's super powerful, but then it gets trashed. And then I have another one that I could kind of just keep using by like uh exhausting it and possibly paying some resources, but I get some cool special ability, while also my starting deck is a little bit different from yours. So that's cool. And then the market, we're both picking from the same market, and pretty much you're trying to build combos into your deck, where you might be going for all like the red and greens or something like that. And because some abilities are like, if you already have a red card out there, you get this special ability now. So that is really, really cool. And then you could have these crazy big turns where it's all of a sudden it's like, okay, and I deal 20 points of damage to your life points, which is crazy. So I love it. I love the fantasy theme of this one. So it's really cool. So that's my number 4, Hero Realms.
I believe it was maybe last year that Megan and I played through the cooperative campaign version of this game too. And we had a lot of fun with that. It made me back the Star Realms coming out also with a cooperative. I think it's it may actually be cooperative. It's a campaign version of Star Realms, but I backed that as well. But yeah, have you tried the Hero Realms cooperative version?
I have, yeah, and that's really, really cool. I haven't finished through the campaign for whatever reason, but I did really, really like it. I've played it a couple, maybe 3 times or something, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I love co-op, so I was like, awesome, let's do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. So Hero Realms at number 4 for you.
Yes.
My number 4 is Clank, a game that also has a campaign mode, has a lot of expansions at this point. And I have a couple different boxes of Clank. I have the Clank Catacombs, where you're kind of building the map as you play. And I have some of the other versions of Clank too that are in a giant, too heavy box to show up on the camera here. But Clank is a deck building game. I think the first one that we're mentioning here, or Orleans does have a map too. In Clank, you are built not only building a deck, but also you have a meeple that you're moving around a dungeon as you're trying to kind of raid the dungeon and get out. So there's this push your luck element of how deep into the dungeon do you go to gather stuff before you run out. I like that push your luck element. I like that I'm using my deck to do something else, I guess. I do like the satisfaction of building a deck, that engine building, but also the different paths I can take in the dungeon. Those choices are really fun and interesting to me as well. And yeah, Clank to me flows really well every time I play it. I have liked all of the expansions. I love the legacy version. And yeah, I love everything about Clank. Have you played which different versions of Clank have you played and enjoyed? I'm guessing you played at least some of them. Yeah.
I've only played the original.
Okay.
So that was on my honorable mentions. I love it too. I mean, I love push your luck, deck building. Like it combines a lot of things that I really love in a game. I would really like to play the legacy version of Clank. I love legacy games, so and I hear really good things about the legacy version. So I really want to play that. It didn't quite make my, I guess, top 5, only because I felt like I hadn't played it enough for it to reach my top 5. I don't know, but overall, I really enjoyed the game. Yeah. So it's good.
Yeah. There is I think this video will go live probably when the campaign for the second legacy version of Clank is still live. So people can check that out. That's out there.
Cool.
All right. So that's Clank at number 4. And your 4 was Hero Realms. What is your number 3 favorite deck building game?
So my number 3, I think this one is really underrated, but I will have a caveat with it. So it is Vikings Gone Wild.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this one I feel was underrated. And I want to say that specifically this enters my number 3 with the Elementals expansion. Because I think that really just opens up the game to really cool elements. But yeah, essentially it's based off of an app, I think, that you could play on your phone. And it keeps that sort of artwork and everything, but The thing I love about this game is that you're building out your town, and essentially you're building up your engine to gain more and more resources in order to complete objectives, to get you points. You can then get like certain gods from to put in your deck when you reach like certain thresholds of points, which is cool. And there's also a little bit of a race going on in that, where it's like, okay, I want to get there, that way I get more choices than other people. So that's really cool. I don't know, there's something really satisfying of placing cards and everything, where I then get to build out my little town. I don't know a whole lot of deck building games where you get to build out a town that is then creating like an engine for you to create more resources for you, and then also give you points. And you're allowed to attack other people's towns, which is cool. So, but you can also like defend and everything. So that it adds interesting things to the game. But then I do highly recommend playing it with the Elementals expansion, just because of the other like bits that it adds in terms of more objectives and more things that you could go for in terms of like certain elements that could power up certain cards and all that stuff. So I don't know, I really like this game a lot, and so it is my number 3, Vikings Gone Wild, specifically with the Elementals expansion.
So this is one I think I've heard you talk about before. I've never tried it. I need to. For someone trying it for the first time, would you recommend that they throw the Elements expansion in there right away, or wait until they play the base game a few times?
I would probably play the base game a few times. That's personally for me. Some players are like, I'm fine, just throw everything in. In which case that's fine. But yeah, I would recommend play the base game first. It might feel a little dull without it. But I still enjoyed it even without the expansion, but with the expansion, it like makes lists then for me.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to add this one to my list. I'm glad you brought it up here.
Yeah.
Vikings Gone Wild.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right. I'm typing out your list as I go here. My number 3 was on your honorable mentions list, the Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Yes.
I don't own it because a friend of mine owns like the fully decked out version with the Geek Bits tokens that feel so good. He's probably spent hundreds of dollars on this game, but I just love the kind of the wildness of it, that you're building a bag of tokens. You're every round you're simultaneously with other players pulling those tokens one by one out of the bag and adding them to your cauldron as you're brewing a potion, trying to get further along that path than the other players, and also just trying not to bust. I often bust anyway, but busting in this game, this was a good reminder to me as a designer as to how to do push your luck, because even when you bust in Quacks of Quedlinburg, you get a choice. You can gain points or you can gain resources to improve your bag. That's a great decision point, I think, at different times in the game, and depending on how far on that path you went. And the really clever thing I love about Quacks that we kind of learned for Libertalia Winds of Galecrest is that when you're using tokens in this way, instead of cards, you can assign different definitions to those tokens every time you play. So in one game of Quacks, the yellow tokens might mean one thing, and they might mean a very different thing in a different game. So you can really vary. You can offer a lot of variability in that way. I've played, I think, all the expansions at this point, and I enjoy them all. But I also just enjoy going back to the core game. I think the core game offers a lot of replayability and fun right there from the beginning. Yeah. What you mentioned Quacks as well. Do you?
Yes.
You enjoy it?
No,
yeah.
I love the game. I don't have the geek up bits, but what I wound up doing was putting them in little like coin holders. So and then I wound up 3D printing baskets to hold all of the stuff and the book, the recipes, I guess, which is cool. Love this game. I really like that the busting doesn't make you like completely lose everything or anything like that. You still get some sort of benefit, which is cool. It's just not as many benefits. And you don't get to roll the die, even if you were the furthest along the circle. I like the catch-it mechanism with the rat tails, which is cool. Although I felt like it doesn't help that much because sometimes somebody is just really running away with it. And I guess that's why it didn't quite make the list for me, but I still love the game. It is so much fun. And I've played it with the Herbs and Witches expansion, which I actually really like. I like that one a lot. I haven't played with the newest expansion. But overall, yeah, that one is just a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy it. And I like that the Herbs and Witches expansion adds like a 5th player, because I always felt, I was like, why does this only have to be a 4-player game? This could easily be like more players. So yeah.
Yeah, everything's so simultaneous. You probably could combine like 2 copies of Quacks and play with 8 or 10 people.
Right,
if you
right,
have the
right.
expansions. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
So number 3 is we have Vikings Gone Wild and the Quacks of Quedlinburg. What's your number 2?
So my number 2 is an interesting one. This one is actually a collectible card game in a way.
Okay.
So mine is Dice Masters.
Dice
Ooh.
Masters.
Yeah. So I find this to be an underrated game as well. And it's really cool because what you do is you construct your deck of cards beforehand, and it's like a team of 8. But they each have dice on them that you could purchase, and you're building your bag then of dice with the team that you created. And then with that, you're pulling out a certain amount of dice, and you're rolling them to then like attack your opponent. You have like different here. I only play Marvel and DC, but there's tons of different themes out there. Like I think even WWE is one of the themes. But yeah, so you're building out your team and you're placing them like in the field zone, and then you're trying to like attack your opponent. Your opponent gets to decide if they want to defend or not. What I love about this game, I think it's really clever, is that there's a use pile and then there's a prep pile. So the use pile, you have to wait for that for everything out of your bag to be used up, and then you could place all those used dice back into the bag. But if you decide to like defend, let's say, and your character is killed off, it goes into your prep pile, meaning you get to actually roll all those dice along with like 4 dice that you get to pick out of your bag, which is really cool. So then you're just rolling a whole bunch of dice, which is really satisfying. And I just find that so interesting that you get to like build out your team first, you construct that first, and then during the game, you're building a whole other like deck or pool of dice just based off what you have to either what's it called, like respond to what your opponent is doing, or just in terms of like, okay, this is what I want to do, this is the way I think that my deck works the best, or whatever, or you want to try different strategies and things like that. So so I find that really, really awesome. And yeah, this one does not get a whole lot of love. I know now they're coming out with like draft packs. They've gone through different iterations where it was like first they were coming out with boosters, like a regular CCG, and then they did campaign boxes, which I didn't quite like. But now they're doing draft packs, which is cool. I like those. So yeah, the only bad part of the game, I guess, is the inconsistency with words, and I think that's really important for a CCG. But otherwise, the game is so much fun. Just like, building up your team of heroes, rolling dice, and like building that bag of dice and everything. I find that really, really cool and fun.
And it sounds, I've never played it, but it sounds, I do like what you're describing about how you can do a little bit of construction in advance. But you are also building up during the game based on the circumstances. I think that's a really neat combination of the two.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then the dices themselves also give you like energy or resources to be able to buy more dice and everything. So it's really cool.
I'll have to find a way to play this. I don't think I know anyone who owns the game. I didn't even know that they were still making more.
I always say I'm like the only person in New York who plays this game.
That's great. So Dice Masters,
yes,
at number 2 for you. My number 2 is another one that you mentioned on your honorable mentions. You had a lot that I mentioned, and there's a very recent one, but I am really, really enjoying the Star Wars deck building game.
Yes.
By far the newest game on my list. It's a 2-player, although I think the box says I could expand a team version if I get another copy of it. But I'm just enjoying dueling with Megan. I'm taking on either the Empire or the Rebels. And other than the theme, I love the Star Wars theme, but the hook for me that got me to be really excited about the game, to try it, and that I've loved every time I play, is that once I buy a card, once I gain a card and it enters my deck, that card is essentially safe. Like, it's never going to leave my deck unless I do something to it. It might be like I might put out a base like in Star Realms, and my opponent can defeat that base, but it re-enters my deck. It's a ship, I guess, in this game, so it re-enters my deck. Opposed to the cards in the card row, where I can either buy from that card row if they're eligible cards from the card row, but I can also interact with those cards and remove them. That's the point of interaction of the game. So, but I like that those cards feel alive thematically, that like they're out, Darth Vader is out there in the universe. As a rebel, I can go and take care of Darth Vader before my opponent has the chance to put them in their deck. But when my opponent has put Darth Vader in their deck, I have to deal with Darth Vader from then on. Like, I'm not ever getting rid of Darth Vader. So I really, really like that. Along with, we've gotten to the point in the game where we just put all the planets in the game. You have 10 different planet bases per side. And the choice whenever one of your planets is defeated is which planet do you want to add in? Which new base do you want to have your base be? They have ongoing abilities. Some of them have comes into play abilities, and they have different strength levels. And that's a really fun choice in the game. Like, what planet do I need in this moment based on the deck that I built and the deck that my opponent has built? Yeah, I'm really loving this game. And I also love how quick it is. Like, we'll get it to the table and be done in maybe 30, 45 minutes if we're playing slowly. You mentioned it, so obviously you've played it. What are you enjoying it?
I love that game for the exact same reason. The interaction with the market itself, I have not seen that before, where like you can actually destroy something. And it's so interesting where it's like, okay, if I'm playing Dark Side or the Rebellion, only I'm allowed to like buy that card. And but you can destroy it if you wanted to, if you can, before I buy it. That is really cool. And then there's like those neutral cards where either one of us could take it. Yeah, that one is so good. The only reason it didn't make my top 5, because at first it did, and then I took it off because I don't own the game, and I've only played it a couple of times. And I really want to own the game. I want to buy that game because my wife and I we got to play it at where were we? The last convention we were Dice Tower West. We got to play it. And that was just so much fun. And the both of us were like, we have to buy this game. But have not bought it yet. I really want to. If I do, that would probably bump something off of my list from my top 5. So that one's really good. I like that pick.
I'm glad you got the chance to try it. And yeah, so Dice Masters for you, Star Wars, the deck building for me at number 2. Let's get to our number 1s. What is your number 1 favorite deck building game right now?
Okay, so my number 1 is a pretty popular one. So I've moved away from underrated games. And it does deal with superheroes still. I do love my superheroes. And that is Marvel Legendary deck building game. So this one is just so much fun for me. I'm always coming back to it. I know that it's an older one, but they keep just coming out with new stuff for it, new expansions and everything. I don't have like a whole lot of the expansions, but I have I think it's called Dark City expansion, which pretty much that's really all you need is the base and Dark City, and you're good to go. That being said, I've bought other expansions as well, and it's just so much fun. I love that each expansion synergizes really well within itself, which is cool. And then you could just randomize it, and it's pretty simple. You just have your mastermind out there, your main villain, and they have the way they play and the way they scheme and everything. But then you also have a scheme that they're trying to accomplish, which is interesting. So you can always pair up different like schemes to the villain, and some are very difficult, some are like a breeze. And then also depending on like what heroes you get, because those are randomized as well. Now I have this cool app where it's like you could randomize it, but then make it like balanced or more balanced or less balanced, totally random, whatever it might be. I usually go just totally random because I'm like, whatever. And I like just saying like, yeah, I'm picking up Gambit and I'm gonna play Gambit and do all these things. Like it's just fun to play with these heroes. And like I said, it's pretty easy. The only thing is the setup process can be a bear. What I like to do usually is if I know I'm going to play it, I'll set it up beforehand. And then once people are over or whatever, I plop it out and we're ready to go. Yeah, that one's cool. And what I really like from the expansions is the bystanders also having some sort of ability when you actually save them. Because originally they didn't. They just nothing really happened except for some schemes. You know, depending on it. But I love the bystanders that have like actual special abilities. So when you save them, you also get kind of some sort of perk, which is cool. I don't play the competitive way where like, oh, if you beat more people, you like win or something. I don't know. I don't care for that. I'm just about the cooperative nature. And like I said, I love co-op. So yeah, this is a really cool one for me, just cooperatively deciding the decks. And sometimes you could even get in each other's way. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I'm building this. Maybe we could have it where like you're building this. That way we're not clashing against each other. So it's sort of this like give and take, which is really interesting in this game.
Nice. I hope someday we're at the same convention and we can play this together, because the only reason that game doesn't get to the table more is because of the setup. And I like playing with someone who knows the game so well that the setup is fairly intuitive for them.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of fun with it. And I really enjoy. Have you played the Aliens version of it, of Legendary?
No, I have not. But I've heard good things about that one.
Yeah, it has that was, I think, my favorite version of the Legendary series. Not because of the Aliens IP necessarily, but because of the way that the alien creatures themselves kind of sneak up on you. I thought was a nice thematic touch to that version.
That's cool. Yeah, I have not played. This is the only Legendary I've played. But I'd be willing to give it a shot. Any of the other Legendary. I think there's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer Legendary, or
probably
right. Yeah. Love that show, by the way. But yeah, no, and it's funny because this is Marvel. I'm actually more of a DC person. But I have not heard good things about the DC deck building game. So Marvel is just taking over the board game sphere.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's a good reminder to me to get that one back to the table in the near future. It's been a while. My favorite is a somewhat newer game that's came out with an expansion a few months ago, and an expansion before that. My favorite deck building game right now is still Dune Imperium. This is also a worker placement game, but from the deck building side, two things that I really enjoy. One, each card has kind of a top and bottom section, where the top is the benefit that you gain when you actually play the card. And sometimes there's nothing even there, just showing you where you are allowed to place a worker by playing that card. And any cards, you're only playing typically 2 cards, the number of workers you place in a round. Sometimes you can get more workers and play more cards, but typically it's 2. And any cards remaining in your hand, you gain the bottom benefit, which is typically either something related to combat or to acquiring more cards. I think it's not skill in this game. Influence. It's influence is what you're spending in this game.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that the cards that you don't play still have meaning. And it gives you a tough choice. Which cards am I going to play versus hold on for the end of my turn? And I also really like that because you are only buying cards at the end of each round, your deck, there isn't like deck bloat in Dune Imperium. You will remain with a fairly slim deck, meaning that you'll see those cards more often. And it means that every card that you buy has like a huge impact on the game. It's not just a card that, a little card that you'll cycle through a lot. You'll cycle through the cards a lot, but they'll have a pretty big impact on what defines that game of Dune Imperium for you. So those are my 2 favorite elements of the deck building in Dune Imperium. I love the game. It keeps getting back to the table. Maybe a little bit long. Like Star Wars is just a lot quicker to get to the table right now. But I still love Dune Imperium. Have you played it?
I have played it. Yeah, I've played it. My brother owns this game, and he just hates playing games with me, apparently. I've only played it like once or twice. And I remembered really liking it when I was playing it. But it didn't make the list just because I was like, I can't quite remember what goes on in the game, since it's been a while since I played it, and I've only played it like once, maybe twice. But I did love the mesh of like deck building and worker placement. That was really cool for me. And that's honestly all I could say about the game, because I don't remember it that well. But I've been wanting to play that one again. I was hoping that you would put it on the list, because I was like, oh man, I hope it gets spoken about, because I know it's really good, but I can't talk about it. So no, that's a good one. I would love to play that. And I know you're mentioning hopefully we could meet up at a convention. I would love to play any of these games with you at a convention. Yeah, that would be cool.
Let's make it happen.
Yes.
Well, those are our number ones. Marvel Legendary for you, Dune Imperium for me, both based on intellectual properties, but both games done really well, I think. I really appreciate you joining me for this list. I know it takes time to put together these lists. I appreciate the time you spent on this. I also, I asked you this in advance to see if you would be comfortable sharing it, but I asked you if you could share one call to action for people, my fellow gamers, people in the gaming community and beyond, who care about transgender rights. What is one call to action that we can do, that someone can do if they're watching this video, if they care about transgender rights?
Yeah, I was thinking about this for a while, like to pick one thing, like what would I say? And I think that the biggest thing I would say to do, I think it's something that pretty much anyone can do, is engage with media that either has been created by a transgender person, or includes transgender characters in a good light, in a positive light. Because the more you surround yourself with that, the more you see like everybody's just kind of people, and it's not really that big of a deal. And so it does so many things. One, it raises trans voices and talent, and then two, it allows you to see it in a much more normalized way that maybe you haven't been surrounded by before. So I think that would be something very cool to just seek those things out, because they're out there. Like The Witch Boy by Molly Knox is really cool. It doesn't exactly say like this person's trans or anything like that, but it points to it. And it's a book for youth as well. It's a graphic novel youth book. So yeah, I would say just engage with that type of media, because I think media changes so much of our perspectives on people and ideas, and it has for so long. So I think if we were to change anything, if we were really going to like move forward with change, I think just in terms of what we engage with within media is huge. So yeah, just check out some trans board game designers, YouTubers, developers, writers, and it doesn't have to just be board games. It could be books, television shows, movies, whatever it might be, and that also have trans characters again in a positive light. So that would be really cool, I think.
I love that. Thank you so much for thinking about that. I know there's a lot of other call to actions as well, but I wanted to focus just on one today to give people a starting point and give myself a better starting point as well. And I really appreciate you sharing that and for joining me today. And if you want to check out one such channel, Room 51, check out the Room 51 YouTube channel and Twitch.
Yes. Yeah, Twitch is Room 51 Live.
Room 51 Live. Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't get the Room 51, but that's okay. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Jamey, for having me on and asking me about a call to action in general. That's really cool. And I think you're like the only publisher / designer to have me on like a video right now to spread some more awesome trans stuff and whatnot. And I loved making this list and talking about it with you. So this was really great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Pleasure's all mine. Well, yeah, thank you so much. I'll let you know when it goes live. I hope you have a great Tuesday.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.